Welcome to the December 2023 Business Insights Online Network interview. And this month, Pete Allison will be chairing a discussion about marketing business in a digital age, and is joined by Andy Coghlan from CX Strategy and Jill Smith from Business Kitchen for what should be a fascinating and thought-provoking discussion. So over to you, Pete.
Thanks, Guy, and thank you, Andy and Jill. So just very quickly first, an apology for any of you who are expecting Louise Taylor to be on this call. Unfortunately, Louise had to withdraw late last night. She's had some complicated things going on that meant she can't. So Jill has very kindly stepped into her seat. Jill is very well versed with small businesses and how they work and marketing issues. So I'm sure that short notice will be just fine. Now, this discussion we're about to have was inspired about a week and a half ago, and I met Andy on a totally different network meeting that we were both at, and heard about his new business and what he's been doing, and also what he's been doing historically in his previous career. And Andy mentioned Cirque du Soleil, who a few of you have some knowledge of, and some of you will know I come out of the events and festivals world, so I have a bit of a light touch working knowledge of Cirque du Soleil, and a fascinating business. And actually it was really interesting in that conversation to hear from Andy about how they've used some digital strategies to move things forward. That inspired a conversation that led to this discussion, which is actually in an age, you know, of the last 10 years where digital marketing has developed and grown, and well, it's arrived and developed and grown and acquired a place in our marketing world, which, you know, 10, 20 years ago, we really wouldn't have imagined. And actually that affects every business everywhere doing any marketing. Andy's got some great experience from some of the larger businesses who are applying, you know, significant budgets and strategies for that. But actually the discussion we led on to is it actually affects everybody, you know, from the simple first time you ever put a post on LinkedIn through to how do you represent your business digitally. So we thought today would be a really interesting discussion, playing off and looking at the differences between sort of some of the larger approaches to that, and actually how we can learn from that and how we can deploy in the small business environment. Made especially relevant for Andy, I guess, because having left that larger corporate world, he's now setting up his own smaller business, and actually, you know, the same comment applies. So you can reverse engineer the thinking to yourself. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just invite both Andy and Jill to reintroduce themselves briefly, but just in the context where we're going for this conversation, just so that everybody understands your backdrop to arriving here, and then we'll just run through some questions that we've all had sight of before. So we'll hopefully have some intelligent answers over the next 20 minutes to half an hour. Andy, do you want to go first? Do you want to just reintroduce yourself there?
Yeah, sure. Andy Coghlan. I just set up CX Strategy, which is customer experience strategy, looking at the customer journey from end to end, from when they're kind of prospect through to a lead to customer, to how you grow those customers, how you create loyalty, how then create advocacy. Really looking at understanding from the customer point of view what those pain points are. And so why are they leaving the process? Because as an organization, if you can keep as many in at every single stage, so keep more prospects, convert more, onboard more better, grow more, get more repeat business, etc., then it helps to grow your business. And looking at how you do that in terms of, you know, what programs you need to put in place, what data you need, what technology you need, and what the business case and the commercial impact is going to be.
Brilliant. And Jill, just give us a little bit of a story from your end, the Business Kitchen, about how you look at this subject area.
Well, for the Business Kitchen, because we're dealing with the micros and down to sole traders, and therefore quite often it's only them, the important part that we concentrate on is like Andy, is looking at that customer journey. We use the business model canvas as a basis for everything we do. And we look at both the away motivation and the toward motivation in terms of why people purchase and when do you want to get in front of them. But digitally, really looking at the channels that people use. And I know we're going to talk about digital, but actually challenging them as whether all their marketing needs to be digital, or actually whether some of it is good old-fashioned posters or parish magazines or talking to people. Social media and digital is not the panacea to cure all ills, basically, in my book. So the importance of that channel to really mirror the needs and gains that your target market want, but also being very, very conscious of where they will be looking for those solutions. So where do you find them?
Brilliant. And of course, lost my train of thought there. So when it comes to the two different scales of business that you've got, I'll invite both of you to answer this as best you can, because Jill, you've got some experience in your career in working for large corporates as well. So when it comes to marketing, specifically in this conversation, digital marketing, what do you see as the real differences between working that thinking through for a larger business and for a smaller business? Jill, do you want to lead with that?
Yeah, so I worked in corporate financial services for 30 or 40 years. So I've got a big company experience as well as small businesses. I think for me, the prime difference is that for the very large companies, in fact, I'm working with a software company at the moment, a lot of what they need to be doing with their digital side of their world is all about authority, credibility, thought leadership, and visibility. Whereas for much smaller businesses and micros, it is going to be more about lead gen, getting people in the top of the funnel and then taking them through the funnel and maximizing the average lifetime value of the client, which comes back to what Andy was saying about repeat business and referrals and how you value that. And those are two very different things. So for the software company who are in the business intelligence world, they need to get out there and demonstrate why they are experts in their field, so that when they have conversations with people, there's that background to that authority. Whereas I think for smaller businesses, particularly with a lot of tech, it is quite easy to have quite automated processes, building on Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok and all the other platforms that actually can bring people in quite easily. And then you just need to make sure you've got the proper process and you're actually qualifying those leads. So they can overlap, but that, to me, that's where the dichotomy is really.
And I'm guessing that a lot of both of those sit in the digital world, but it's actually the channels and the style of digital comms that you use. Yeah, okay. Andy, what's your take on the differential between those two?
Something Jill said, for me, I don't see much differential. Even where Jill's talking about, I think, the authority, etc., you still need that at a local level, which is where things like ratings and reviews comes in as a reference point. It's less complex, but much the same. I think the major difference is our budgets. Large organizations have bigger budgets, more channels, more resources, more ability to gather the data and insights. Often with a smaller organization, you may even be talking about one person doing it, and it's not even their day job. So it becomes a matter of focus and time to do beyond the norm. But I do agree, what's leveling the playing field at the moment now is the amazing amount of tools and support out there for smaller businesses. So tools like HubSpot, Dripify, Expandy, even the Gen AI stuff, the Ad Creative, Writesonic, Canva, Wix, the ability to quickly and effectively create some automated campaigns, some automated marketing, and integrate with the sales process is actually quite staggering now compared to what it was even a few years ago. So the principles of what you need to do in terms of, go out and prospect, find customers where they are, attract them, gain their interest, to be able to communicate the right product propositions to them, etc., are the same. It's just really a matter of scale and resources to me, and focus.
So there are two takeaways I get from that. One is, while it does level the playing field, pick up on your sort of second point there, what it's going to do is it's going to massively increase the volume of traffic on that playing field. So you're going to end up having to be more discerning about who you work with, and that's surely going to influence the input to the content. The second takeaway I would have is that the larger business, because it has more resource finance capability, has an ability to be much more strategic, whereas what we're hearing described there for the smaller business is a much more tactical one man. It may not even be their role, so it's grab the opportunity when you can and do what you can.
Yeah, but I would argue that actually smaller businesses can be much more agile and quick.
Yeah.
Large businesses have often long sign-off processes, long, you know, I work with a large organization in the health technology field, and they took 6 weeks to get a single communication out the door because of the sign-off processes and the amount of people involved.
Yeah.
Whereas a smaller organization, you can shortcut that decision-making process. And if you have the tools where, you know, as I mentioned, some of those content and creative tools, you can create your own ad within 20 minutes.
So actually, yeah, so I absolutely take that. And I think you can, therefore, for the smaller business, if you take that as an opportunity that the smaller business has, it then comes down to having interesting content and the capability. It's all well be able to react fast, but you've got to react fast with something that's got relevance and an effect.
Absolutely.
Jill, do you have any thoughts on
that? Well, yeah, because I think I totally agree with what Annie's saying. It is easier for, if you're a sole trader, then you can do anything you like as quickly as you like, and your decision-making process can be as long or as short as you want to make it, basically, depending whether you work with coaches and mentors and trainers and use other people, like Rachel and some of the other people that are on the call. The whole thing of this, though, for me, comes back to every single thing, particularly for a small business, every single thing that you do in a small business, you must have clarity about the outcome that you are trying to get to, because there are a lot of rabbit holes in the digital world. And actually, one of the things that is one of my bugbears is you see a lot of the stuff from, getting advertised about, we can get you 1,000 leads. Most of the sole traders on this business, on this call and other networking meetings, can't handle 1,000 leads. You don't want 1,000 leads, because if you're in a relational business, unless you're selling widgets, you're not looking for 1,000 clients. You're looking for 10 of the right clients or 20 of the right clients. And so that whole relational piece, to me, needs to be overlaid with how you use the digital marketing capability that is absolutely huge, of which there's no doubt. But are you using a sledgehammer to crack a nut? And actually, there's a simpler and easier way with all the measures in place, because you must know what's working in order to match your business and what you're trying to do and what clients you're trying to find for your business. And I think that's, for the bigger boys, and depending on the type of business they're in, their marketing tends to be much more intense. For a smaller business, they don't necessarily need to do that.
So we're picking up another critical piece there. In the smaller business, when it comes to digital marketing, you're leading towards a relationship. Smaller business will normally value highly the one-to-one relationship that the business owner or key stakeholder in the business will have. Whereas if you take, if you say you're BT or Amazon, you're never going to lead to a personal relationship in the piece of marketing that you're doing. So you've got a much more automated, planned journey that you're dealing with.
And within a small business, it also depends what your products and services are. So if I look at the Business Kitchen, we've got our membership stuff, which is very relational, is very much a one-to-one, comes out of networking, comes out of having a one-to-one conversation. We're not driving much traffic in terms of people signing up for that. The Knowledge Vault, which is going to be the on-demand, will be a completely different model. That will be highly automated. It will use sales funnels because it's not relational in the same way. I don't need that conversation with the people that sign up for it. If they want to pay the money, they can sign up for it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
I mean, I would argue that the bigger businesses need to take what Jill said and really hyper focus on what's working and what they shouldn't be doing as well, because they're doing an awful lot of what they shouldn't be doing. I come from an original direct marketing background where, people were rejoicing that you got a response rate of 1%. And when I pointed out, and that was good for a direct mail campaign. And when I pointed out that means you've got 99% of people who aren't engaging with your brand, and you're communicating with them 10 times a year and they're never engaging with your brand, and you're creating noise, then you'd be better off doing nothing than sending that. So I think I totally, get the point about having to be hyper-focused within small businesses, but boy, can big businesses learn from that too.
Yeah, there's a really interesting thing going on there. So I want to just go slightly in a different tack, because that's been a really interesting start point to kind of picturing the difference between these two businesses. But Andy, obviously we've just been through a big pandemic, and lots and lots and lots of things changed in our business worlds, ranging from cataclysmic disasters of situations through to how we operate, through to Zoom, through to loads of different things. And as a statement, I think most people would probably say as a knee-jerk that the digital side of comms, when you're marketing a business and talking about a business, have probably elevated over the pandemic simply because it's kind of what happened. So from the point of view of somebody who's kind of worked and lived through the pandemic in this space, how would you say the trends have changed for digital marketing since the pandemic?
Well, I mean, this is one of them, because this would have maybe been a seminar in person,
Yeah.
Less frequent and more commitment to have to travel, and I think. Sorry, I lost my track there, but I think as well that the reason I talk about customer experience, CX, is more and more sales, marketing and service are blending together. It's all part of the same process. And so I believe that there's much more of a convergence of what you need to be doing. There's much more video content, social content out there as well. So I think content marketing, social selling, social engagement, everything there is on the increase. And I think that the rise of video streaming, especially as the younger audience get into business, then things like TikTok, etc., are going to be absolutely everywhere in terms of part of the sales and marketing mix. Even for more consultative selling type products as well. So I think certainly the digital engagement, the social media content marketing has all been on the rise through the pandemic because it's more experiential, visual, doesn't have to be in person, you don't have somebody on the end of the phone. I think things have got worse to a certain extent as I say, as it's blended. As more people have tried to get on the phone or chatbots, etc., I don't think chatbots have answered questions in any decent way. You go around in rabbit holes. You can't get on the telephone to speak to people. So in those ways, I think the use of technology has got worse and made things worse. But actually, there is much more content out there and self-help and communities where you can get support. So that has risen, and I see all that as part of the marketing mix, to be honest.
Jill, I wonder from your perspective, obviously working with a whole range of smaller micro businesses, how do you see the differentials going in digital marketing since the pandemic?
Well, what's really interesting about one of the first points you made around this question was that I think it was in back end of 2021, there was a paper published, I can't remember, it might have been HP or somebody, it might have been HubSpot, who said that because of the pandemic, the digital marketing and technology side of things had advanced 10 years in that 18 months. So it had given the whole thing a complete kick start, because if people wanted to attend networking meetings, they had to get to grips with being on camera and being, in Zoom meetings or Teams meetings or GoTo meetings or whatever it was. So, there was definitely rather than it being a slow change, there was definitely a big step change in things. I think for small businesses, digital marketing and all the tools that sit in there, they are a set of tools. AI is a fantastic tool, but at the end of the day, it is a tool. And for small businesses with limited time, particularly if they're sole, it comes back to the hyper focus. You've got to get really key on what really works for your business, your marketplace, your products and services, your sales funnel, the customer journey. The customer experience part is obviously a key part, but one thing you've got to remember with customer experience is that wow today is taken as read tomorrow. So you've got to always be looking. But I think one of the things that's really key for thinking around the whole digital place is, and it comes back to what Andy was saying about video and content, is how in that morass of stuff that's appearing in people's feeds, do you make yours stand out and be memorable? And I've just been doing some LinkedIn training with a guy called Steve Mills, who's a LinkedIn expert and marketing consultant. And part of his LinkedIn process is picking up the phone. So
interesting.
I think that's critical. It's part of the mix. And it's not digital, or it's it's the and. So again, it is that kind of customer experience through all channels, through phone, through posting. Be where the customers are, enable them to engage how they want to engage, and if you're going to push them the right content, try to push them the right content at the right time in the right channel. And make sure, I mentioned the entertainment organization. The simple statistic they had there was that 80% of the visitors to their website were via mobile, but only 30% of the bookings were via mobile. And that's because their mobile experience was awful. So either they made people switch channels or they lost them altogether.
I think that's a fairly general stat, actually, is that it's what my digital marketing guy that I work with calls fat finger syndrome. You've got to put loads of details in on a mobile. It's not really easy. Sit and do it on desktop, and you're doing it on a keyboard, and it's really straightforward.
So just staying with that experience of the actual digital marketing for a second, you segued very beautifully into my next thought here. Is obviously in a digital post or digital comms, you've got two things going on. You've got the text and the content, and the language and the message that's being used, and you've got graphics which are going to draw you in, be they moving, be they static, whatever. Can I ask what you see as the balance and the relationship between those two in a piece of digital marketing? Either you want to go, Jill, do you want to go first?
I think it depends a little bit what platform you're on. So if you're sending out emails, there's a load of stats around emails that say that, the subject line is basically the envelope. So it's what encourages people to read the email, open the email in the first place. Then you have something like a pre-head, which allows the reader to say, yes, this is definitely for me, or no, this isn't for me. So part of your qualifier. And then the next thing you have is some sort of grabber or image. And there's a lot of stats around how much having that grabber actually affects the full open rate, but also any click-through rates on any calls to action. So, but with a lot of these things, there isn't a right answer. It's test and measure. And so you have to test and measure a lot, because what works for one business on one platform won't necessarily work for another. It could be that you're sending the stuff out at 10 o'clock in the morning, and actually it'd be better going out at 7:30 in the morning. So businesses have got to be agile and flexible, and test and test and test and test and measure and keep measuring. And then when it shows that it's falling off, something has changed in the algorithm or in the marketplace, you need to flex, you need to change. So it's a going process of seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, basically, for me.
And that test and measurement can also be taken to extra levels in terms of the individuals. Yeah. Which segments are there different segments that would prefer text and factual information, segments that prefer visual? Or is it individual people that you learn over the time? They respond to these, they don't respond to these. And so you can actually determine which treatment to send them. I'd also, totally agree, depends which medium. There's a big rise in social selling with TikTok and videos, where there's text embedded into video that you can click through to and go straight through and buy. So it's also where that text is applicable. And there's the use of things like infographics, which is a mixture of text and graphics that can convey complex information in quite a simple way, depending on what type of business and what the audience is. And also, again, you don't want a big infographic that you've got to scroll down 50 times on a mobile. So, there's no correct answer other than try to apply some common sense principles, try to understand the audience, and learn over time what works.
Brilliant. And Andy, sorry, Jill.
Remember, it will change. So what works today may not work in 3 months' time. It's never done.
And Andy, just do you see a differential in that balance that you're thinking, and how you're identifying people? When you think about the bigger businesses or when you think about the smaller businesses, I mean, it's presumably going to be fairly instinctive when you talk about smaller businesses. But the larger businesses, is it still instinctive, or is there a strategy being deployed?
I mean, it depends on the business, but I mean, there's a lot of technologies out there, and this is where a lot of the use of AI comes in to learn on an individual basis which treatment works, which doesn't. There's a lot of technologies which allow you to do, high volume A/B testing of treatments, which treatment works. If you've got a message and an advert and you test 3 different treatments, They go to a landing page, you test 3 different treatments, you've already got 9 different variations. Then you go to an offer, and the technology is there that can say, hey, out of these 20,000 combinations, here's your top 10 performance. And then it can do it on an individual basis. But you need the volume to make that worthwhile. So, that's where it does become different.
Brilliant. Okay. So with both of you in your different roles, when Andy, you're talking to businesses from a specific digital marketing angle, Jill, you're talking to small business and consultancy. How do you think your advice and approach might differ from what they might already be seeing, or how would you treat it? Jill, do you want to go first?
I think one of the things that I find, I was talking to a marketing lady the other day, and we were agreeing on this, is that for small businesses, there seems to be a terrible temptation to start in the middle. So they start thinking about the digital marketing strategy or their content strategy, or how many times they're going to post here, there, and everywhere, but they haven't actually worked out who their customer is or what their offering is. So it's all a bit, guys, shrugging your shoulders. It's all a bit sort of like, well, we need to do digital marketing. It's a bit like people say, I've got to have a website, but they've got absolutely no idea why they've got a website, whether it's for the authority or whether it's for traffic, and if it's traffic, how they get traffic to it. So it's the things that haven't changed in marketing is the fundamentals. You need to know who your marketplace is, what their pains and gains are, and how you solve their problems in a way that's different from anybody else that solves their problems at a price that they're prepared to pay. Some of that's sort of getting a bit thrown out with all this lovely tech that's around, because it's a bit sort of like, oh, these lovely shiny new tools that do all this stuff, but they can only do it effectively if the foundational stuff's there. And so a lot of what the kitchen does is we're taking people back to the foundations.
Yeah. Andy, what's your take on that same question?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. What's your product, who's your audience? And what outcomes are you trying to achieve, and that determines what your messaging is going to be, and the channels and the sequencing, etc. And it's very much the same in larger organizations, to be honest. You've got all these buzzwords around about AI in marketing and personalization at scale and omni-channel. And yet you talk to a lot of CMOs and they just want to get their campaigns out quicker, or they want to be able to be more effective and understand their audiences better. So all this stuff is great for generating content and great generating buzz, but the reality is foundations need to be in place before you can do any of that. You have to have the right strategies, the right product, the right data, the right technology, the right way of working, and then you can deliver. In larger organizations, everyone talks about having an omni-channel journey where they can, teach someone through social, then email, then web and everything, but actually they have a separate web team, mobile team, analytics team, email team, sat in probably different buildings even. So how on earth can they bring all of those together? So the fundamentals and foundations are, I think, still the biggest thing that people need to focus on.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so I've got one other question here that I want to lob at you, and then we'll just see if anybody's got any questions they want to ask Andy or Jill. When it comes to the young, we've got a younger generation that are coming through into business, and a slightly older cohort than that who are beginning, been in career for a bit and going into business leadership roles. What advice have you got for them, looking at it from the lens of somebody who's now got a very good career behind you and looking backwards from it? Andy, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're specifically thinking around kind of the marketing arena, because I think with the younger people coming through, there's this concept of the new generation who can do art and code. And what I mean by that is that they can design, build, and execute websites, marketing campaigns. They understand and can put the technologies together and make things work. So they're brilliant at that, but often it's kind of, they're really innovative, but then not really commercially focused. And I think that it's really try to focus again on what the business is about, what the strategy is, what they are selling, who they're selling to, and which of those initiatives are the ones that are going to drive the revenue and growth, and which ones are just going to be something which is great fun but not do anything. And I think the bit of advice I do is if you can find something which actually intersects that fun and innovation with the commercial bit, then focus, because that means you're focusing your passion and building the business.
Brilliant. Jill, what's your advice to the generations coming through and beginning to think about this seriously?
Advice to both ends of the generations. I think the advice of the older generation is that there is, accept change and look at every change as being an opportunity to do something different from your business, and to understand that we all learn from other people in business, and that includes learning from the young generation. I think for the younger generations coming through, I think it's what Andy's saying. They've got the ideas, but they've got to understand that some of the experience that happens for the generations before them is of value too. And I think it's that two-way street of how we do things. But I think one of the things that is important is to understand, or have some basic understanding of, how the different generations actually want to interact. So I know when they were talking about the Gen Z, a while ago, they were saying they're very experiential. They want demos, they want free trials, they want, so, and it comes back to what Andy was saying, with the segments of your audience, how do they want to consume content? How do they want to be informed? And can you handle, multiples? Because not everybody's the same. Some people like to listen, some people like to watch things. So that's true across the piece, I think. So just learn all the time is my advice for everybody.
Brilliant.
I think for both, it comes back when I first started out in marketing. One of the first things I was taught was what gets measured gets done, and it's still hypercritical. Understand what you're trying to achieve, measure it, and make sure that everything you're doing is contributing towards those key performance indicators.
Yeah, no, very good. Okay, thank you both very much. That's been really interesting. Has anyone got any questions that they'd like to lob at either Jill or Andy? It's quite a complex subject area. Feel free to ask if you have. Otherwise, we'll hand back to Guy and probably onward towards the business kitchen. Guy, over to you.